Sometimes the worst betrayals don't come from strangers. They come from the people who wave to you across the street, the ones who smile while screwing you over. My name's Nate. I'm 35. I served 12 years in the Army, and I thought I had a life worth coming home to. Rachel and I had been together since college. She stuck through boot camp, the first deployment, all the relocations, and the long nights of missed calls and military silence. We bought a small house in a quiet suburb of Texas, not far from Killeen. Neighbors brought pies when we moved in. A tight-knit little community, young couples, retirees, ex-military guys with beer bellies and backyard smokers. The kind of place where people waved at each other when driving by, even if they didn't know your name. We were supposed to be safe here. But safety is just a story people sell themselves. When I came back this time, something felt off. It wasn't Rachel at first. It was the neighborhood. People didn't wave like they used to. One morning I stepped out to grab the paper and saw Jim, the guy from 2 doors down, walking his dog. Normally he'd stop, chat about football or ask about base life. That morning, he looked right at me, then kept walking. Didn't even nod. Same thing with Dana across the street. Usually she'd wave when she saw me pull into the driveway. This time, she pulled her kid inside the second she noticed me. I joked to Rachel about it that night. I feel like I walked into the wrong neighborhood. She laughed it off. Maybe they're just not used to seeing you home. Something in her tone didn't sit right. Rachel had changed too. She was more alert, not affectionate, just on edge. Her phone was always face down. She'd leave the room to answer texts. When I came up behind her and hugged her like I always used to, she tensed, said she was still adjusting, but I could smell it. Not perfume, not sweat, just that scent people carry when they've been close to someone else, intimate, and trying to wash it off. One night I came home earlier than planned from visiting an old buddy in Waco. She didn't hear me come in. I walked through the laundry room straight into the kitchen and saw her putting her phone down fast like I caught her doing something. She smiled, but her eyes didn't. Just texting Dana. She's having a hard week. I nodded, said nothing, but Dana was the same one who wouldn't look me in the eye a few days ago. Then came the noise. Late at night after Rachel fell asleep, I started hearing whispers in my head. Not voices, just replays of her tone, her laugh when she got texts, the fake casualness when I asked where she'd been all afternoon, and that silence from the neighbors. It started to feel less like indifference and more like they all knew something I didn't. But still, I did what most men do. I buried it, told myself, you've been gone too long. You're just paranoid. Civilian life always feels weird after deployment. Breathe. But deep down, that sick twisting in my gut wasn't PTSD. It was instinct. Something was very wrong. I went to war thinking I'd seen the worst of people. Turns out I hadn't seen anything yet. The thing about coming back from deployment is you're always scanning. You might be in your kitchen pouring coffee, but your brain is still wired for patterns, threats, inconsistencies. It doesn't turn off. You notice everything. And with Rachel, the patterns didn't add up. She started locking the bathroom door. Not just during showers, always. Even when she brushed her teeth. Even when she was just touching up her makeup before bed. We never used to lock doors in this house. We trusted each other. Then there was the smell. Sometimes I'd come home in the afternoon and the whole house smelled like overly sweet candles. Not her usual lavender or citrus stuff, but cheap, pungent, like someone was trying to cover something up. Once I walked into the bedroom and the windows were wide open, but the air still felt heavy, humid, and wrong. I checked the thermostat. It hadn't changed. But something else had. The bedroom rug was crooked. I noticed because the corner that always sat under the nightstand was turned slightly outward. She had no reason to move that rug, unless someone had kicked it. I didn't want to go full crazy husband, so I decided to dig carefully. She was always glued to her phone, smiling, chuckling, typing fast, then immediately locking the screen when I walked in. She told me she was just talking to her cousin about planning a birthday trip, her cousin who lives in Oregon. And then, just out of curiosity, I checked her cousin's Instagram. She'd been in Spain for 2 weeks. Something in me cracked that night. I didn't scream. I didn't accuse. Instead, I waited until Rachel went to bed and pulled out an old laptop I hadn't used since 2019. One we'd used for our smart home setup back when I installed it before my last deployment. Security cameras, smart lights, backups. She thought it was junk. I never disconnected it from the router. Turns out it was still recording. I opened the video logs folder. Most of the files were empty, days when nothing triggered. But there was one file from the weekend before I came home that wasn't empty. It was 3 hours long. I clicked it. The footage was grainy. No audio, just the feed from the garage camera, the one point at the side door and laundry room. At first, nothing. Then the timestamp hit 8:17 p.m. Rachel came into frame, hair done, wearing a robe. She walked to the side door and opened it. A man walked in. Not just a man, Tony, the guy who lives across the street. His wife was the one who always smiled at me from her garden. Tony came in holding a six-pack and wearing nothing but shorts and sandals. Rachel kissed him before the door even shut. Not on the cheek, not casually, but like they'd done it before. Many, many times. I stopped the footage there. I wanted to scream, break something, wake her up and demand answers. But something told me that was just the tip of it, so I let the video play again. At 8:32 p.m., another man arrived, then a third, then Dana and her husband, 5 people, one house, my house. They were laughing, hugging, drinking. Rachel gave them a tour, casually like she was hosting a party. But it wasn't a party, it was something else entirely. At 9:01 p.m., the hallway camera kicked in, and I watched, stone silent, as they all walked into my bedroom. Rachel last. She looked back once, at the camera. She knew it was there, and she still didn't care. I don't know how long I sat there. Could have been minutes, could have been hours. Eventually I closed the laptop, and I realized something worse than the betrayal. This wasn't a mistake. It was a routine. I thought I had seen the worst of war, but nothing prepared me for watching my wife turn our home into something I can never walk through again. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. I sat in the garage, door closed, lights off. Just me and that old laptop. My hands were shaking, not from fear, not even rage, from disbelief. My own house, the one I painted myself, the one where I installed every lock and bolt, had become a playground for something I couldn't even process. I reopened the folder. There were more files, every weekend. Thursdays too. Some even on weekdays while I was still on active duty. Each one labeled by the system, motion recorded, with timestamps that lined up with the times Rachel said she was out shopping or running errands. The footage wasn't pornographic, not in detail, but it didn't need to be. The camera angles caught enough. I saw Tony again, then Jim, the guy who never waved back, then Dana, her husband, and another woman I didn't even recognize. It was like a schedule. People came in, sometimes 2 at a time, stayed an hour, left, like appointments. But what broke me was a clip from 3 months ago. That day, Rachel picked up Cole, our nephew, to babysit while her sister had a medical appointment. I remember that because she texted me a photo of him playing with blocks in the living room. That same evening, at 6:42 p.m., the garage camera showed Tony entering the house. I clicked the living room cam footage. Rachel had set Cole up with a movie and snacks in the front room. She and Tony disappeared into the hallway. They did it while a child was in the next room. That was the moment something shifted inside me. The betrayal wasn't just sexual, it wasn't just moral, it was dangerous, disgusting, and planned. Later I checked the smart lock history. 13 different unique codes had been entered into our door system in the last 5 months. Each one labeled temporary guest. She'd been giving out digital keys to our house like party favors. To the neighbors, the same people who smiled at me at barbecues, the same ones who thanked me for my service, the same ones who had orgies in my house while I was deployed. I wanted to throw up. I unplugged everything. Every camera, every wire, every device. I wiped the drive clean, but not before backing up every file to a private hard drive, just in case I ever needed proof. Rachel was asleep upstairs. I sat outside on the porch until dawn. She came out, rubbing her eyes like nothing had happened. "You didn't come to bed." I looked at her and just said, "No, I didn't." She didn't ask why, because deep down, she knew. Sometimes the cruelest thing you can do to a liar is give them the floor and watch them choke on their own script. I didn't say anything for 2 days, just observed. Every move she made, every excuse she gave for being on her phone, every time she laughed a little too loud at a message she wouldn't let me see. I ate dinner, slept in the guest room, took walks around the neighborhood where I forced myself to nod back at the people I now knew were part of it. I was collecting data, but more than that, I was watching her work, watching how well she lied. And God, she was flawless. "Dana invited me over for wine night," she said Thursday. I nodded. Dana, who I'd watched on camera laughing in my bedroom, topless. "I might go to Target after," she added casually. Target. That was her alibi at least 4 times in the video logs. I almost smiled at the irony. Friday night, I asked her to sit down. No drama, no raised voice. Just, "Can I talk to you?" She hesitated, then sat across from me at the dining room table. She folded her hands. Professional. Guarded, like she'd practiced for this. "Have I done something wrong?" she asked. That was her opener, straight into offense as defense. I stared at her, let silence hang, then quietly said, "You've had a lot of guests over while I was deployed." Her eyes barely flickered. "Oh, well, yeah. Dana and Jim helped with the plumbing that time, and Tony helped replace the ceiling fan. You know, little things around the house. Plumbing, ceiling fan." She was quoting her script. I nodded again, then placed the small USB stick on the table. Didn't push it toward her. Didn't say a word. Just left it there. She looked at it like it was a gun. "What's that?" "Everything," I said, still calm. "The cameras were still running, Rachel. The backup saved everything." Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. She didn't ask what was on it. She knew. That's the thing about guilt. Real guilt. It recognizes evidence before you present it. She just sat there, hands shaking now. "Nate, please. How long?" "Nate, how long?" She looked away, then back, and the act fell apart completely. "It wasn't supposed to happen like that." That sentence told me everything I needed. She cried, not sobbing, not hysterical, the quiet kind of crying people do when they know they've lost the high ground. "You were always gone. I was alone. And they were here." I didn't respond. "They were kind to me," she added. Kind. As if group sex in our bedroom, while our nephew played in the next room, was kindness. I stood up, said nothing, went to the hallway. And I swear to God, the moment my hand touched the front door, she finally dropped the rest of the mask. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "Tell people? You think they'll believe you over the entire neighborhood?" She didn't say sorry. She said control. Because that's what this was about all along. It was never loneliness. It was never need. It was about power. And she thought she still had some. It wasn't just that she betrayed me. It was that they all watched and laughed. I left the house that night and slept in my truck. Didn't call anyone. Didn't text. Just stared at the roof of my cab for hours, trying to wrap my head around how my entire neighborhood had been in on it, or at least aware of it, and stayed silent. The next day, I drove out to a diner 20 miles away. Old school, quiet, the kind of place where no one asked questions. I pulled out the hard drive I'd copied all the footage to and plugged it into my laptop. This time, I wasn't looking for faces. I was looking for patterns. Some of the timestamps matched up perfectly with events Rachel had mentioned over the phone while I was deployed. Dana sprained her ankle, so I'm helping her with laundry. That was the same day Rachel hosted 5 people in our bedroom. Tony's helping me organize the garage. Footage shows Tony helping her undress instead. We're having a quiet girls' night. That girls' night involved 3 men and a woman I didn't even know by name. Then I saw something I hadn't noticed before. In the January folder, during a night Rachel said she was out with her sister, the front door cam picked up 2 people walking in, Rachel and our neighbor's teenage son. I paused the footage, My breath caught, but he didn't go past the living room, just helped carry a package inside. Still, he knew. He saw Dana and Jim in their underwear on our couch and just laughed. I decided to take a walk around the neighborhood that afternoon. For the first time in days, I passed Tony's place. He was in his driveway, polishing his truck. Didn't look up until I stopped. "Hell of a summer, huh?" I said. He glanced at me, eyes flat. "Yeah, real hot lately." I took one step closer. "You ever feel guilty screwing another man's wife in his house while he's deployed?" He froze, didn't say a word. I saw it in his eyes. Panic, shame, then smugness. "You're going to make a big deal out of this, huh?" Everyone knew, Nate. That hit harder than anything Rachel had said. Everyone knew. He turned to go back inside like I was nothing, like I was some outsider in my own neighborhood, like they were the community, and I was the idiot who believed in loyalty. I drove straight to the base that evening and spoke to a JAG officer, told him I needed to know my legal position. He walked me through what could be done: divorce options, civil suits, trespassing laws, even possible charges if minors were ever present during inappropriate activity. He paused and looked at me over his glasses. "Do you have evidence?" I slid the hard drive across the desk. "Yeah," I said, "more than enough." Back home, I didn't go inside. I sat in the car and watched the windows. There was a party 2 doors down. Laughter, clinking glasses. Rachel was there. So were Dana, Jim, Tony, all of them. Drinking, talking, and laughing. Like nothing had happened. Like I was already gone. I realized then, they never feared being caught, because they never imagined I'd come back. Not really, to them, I was already a ghost. Some doors you don't slam. You just lock them and walk away so quietly they never hear you leave. I didn't go back into the house, not that night, not ever again. I filed for divorce the next morning, served through a private process server. Rachel got the envelope while she was in the middle of brunch with Dana at the local cafe. I heard it caused a bit of a scene. Good. The lawyer I hired was former military. Didn't ask a lot of questions once I showed him the evidence. He just said, "We'll make this clean and permanent." Rachel tried calling me. Texts, emails, even had her sister reach out. I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. What hit her hardest wasn't the divorce. It was the financial freeze. Our accounts were split cleanly. I'd already prepared my paperwork while she was still sleeping with half the neighborhood. I left her the house because I didn't want it anymore. That wasn't my home. That was their playground. Let her sleep in the same bed they defiled. Let her walk barefoot across the same floor they laughed on. I moved to Montana 2 weeks later, rented a cabin, signed up for local veterans therapy, told no one where I went. A month after I left, I got an email from a neighbor. Not one of the culprits, but a quiet old vet named Charles. "You were right to leave," he wrote. "They talk like nothing happened. But they're scared now. Real scared. I heard Dana's husband left her. Tony's truck got keyed. And Rachel, she cries when she thinks no one's watching." I didn't respond, because I didn't care. They say revenge is sweet, but I don't believe in revenge. I believe in removal, and there's no deeper punishment for people like them than being ignored by the one man they'll never be able to rewrite. I was the guy who came home from war expecting love, and got filmed betrayal instead. I'll never forget, but I sure as hell won't carry them with me. Not anymore.